Thank you all for joining us. So we are covering Let's Talk About It with Lifesteps Alina. Alina, thank you for being here covering our fentanyl crisis and other drugs. We've seen it happen across the community, across the district, across districts, statewide. And it's very important for us to share this information with you all. So I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce yourself and get us started.
All right, awesome, Dana. Thank you for that introduction. So hello, everyone. My name is Alina Rizvi. I am the coalition coordinator at Lifesteps Council on Alcohol and Drugs. So I do a lot of work out in the community. I am always doing presentations, either regarding tobacco, vaping, alcohol, or fentanyl recently as well. And so for today's presentation, we'll definitely be talking about vaping and the dangers of vaping and go into fentanyl a little bit and what's happening in our communities. And I really want to hear from y'all as well. I want to hear your perspectives. And I know that there are some others that will be sharing their stories today. And I'm excited to hear what y'all perspectives are on the topic and how we can educate the community further. And so let me go ahead and share my screen. If someone could just let me know if y'all are able to view it. Is everyone able to view my screen?
Yes. Yep, you're all good.
Perfect. All right. So Dana, are we able to get started with the presentation?
Yes, ma'am. You're ready.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So like mentioned before, I do work for Lifesteps Council on Alcohol and Drugs. I am the coalition coordinator. However, I do have a prevention team that I do work with, and I will go into detail about that a little bit towards the end of the presentation. So our mission is just to form a safe, healthy, and drug-free community. We do work in Williamson and Bastrop County, so our restrictions do lie there. However, we do virtual presentations like this for Travis County as well. So e-cigarettes and the youth vaping epidemic, what to know for 2023. So these statistics that I am going to be sharing and putting out there, these are statistics from previous years. And we just want to put that out there, show y'all what we've gathered to better prepare ourselves and our communities for this year and the upcoming year as well. So let's start from basics. What is an e-cigarette? The simple definition is an electronic cigarette that is battery powered and people use to heat liquid into a vapor that can be inhaled. So you must be 21 years of age to purchase any tobacco product. This law was put into place in 2019. Some slang terms you may see out in the community are vapes, e-cigs, and carts. So the anatomy of an e-cigarette. We see up here, we'll start right at the top. So the cartridge, that's what holds the e-liquid. So really the substance that you're inhaling. Then the atomizer, it's a coil that is a heating element which helps convert e-liquid to tiny airborne droplets, which is the aerosol. Then the sensors, e-cigarettes without a power button will turn on when the user inhales through it. So e-cigarettes with or without a power button require sensors to turn on. And then of course we've got the battery. This is rechargeable lithium ion battery, which provides enough current to heat the atomizer to 400 degrees Fahrenheit in seconds. So we're seeing here that vapes come in all shapes, colors, and sizes. There's not really a specific size that the vape has. Traditionally, they were designed to mimic a cigarette. However, now we're seeing that these elf bars have come out and they look nothing like a cigarette. So what is the problem? And these are statistics for the year of 2022. So 1 in 7 high school students currently use e-cigarettes and 1 in 30 middle school students.
Wow.
So we're seeing here that the majority are actually not using. However, those few that are, and I wouldn't even refer to them as few, there's masses of them. However, we're not wanting our youth to use at all because they are underage. And then we go into more statistics for 2022. So 46% of high school students who vape do so nearly daily. And then more than 90% of disposable e-cigs sold contain the highest levels of nicotine. And we see here that vapes contain many harmful chemicals and materials as well. So we have cancer-causing chemicals, and then volatile organic compounds, of course, nicotine, which is highly addictive, and even the flavoring that they are using in these vapes can be harmful to our lungs and our respiratory system. And then heavy metals such as nickel, tin, and lead can also be found in these vapes. So how does vaping affect the body, especially the adolescent brain? So it's highly susceptible to addiction, sensitive dopamine reward pathway means rewiring for further addiction. Nicotine causes permanent cognitive changes, so worsened memory, processing speed, and impulse control. Mood disorders can cause or worsen anxiety or depression. So we're seeing that already at this age, there is a lot of physical changes, physical and both mental changes going on. And, vaping could just possibly worsen those. So how does vaping affect the body, the lungs? So vape aerosol, what we just talked about with the anatomy of the vape, contains heavy metals. And it does reach very deep into the lungs, causing irritation and inflammation, potential for allergies to hidden ingredients, asthma, and chronic lung disease. So how does vaping affect the heart? Nicotine is a stimulant, so it restricts blood flow, increased blood pressure, adrenaline, and heart rate. And cardiovascular disease is at an increased risk when you do vape, and flavor chemicals are toxic to heart cells. So overall, vaping just affects the body very negatively. So I wanted to throw this in there as well because we're seeing that youth are not only vaping nicotine, but they're also vaping marijuana. So some slang terms would be weed, pot, blunt, joint. I've also seen carts, which does refer to vapes that do contain marijuana. So a simple definition of marijuana is a greenish gray mixture of the dried flowers of cannabis sativa. So some people smoke marijuana in hand-rolled cigarettes called joints, in pipes, vapes, water pipes, sometimes called bongs, or in blunts, which is marijuana rolled in cigar wraps. Some of y'all may have already known some of this information before, but we are seeing again that, youth are using those vapes that contain marijuana. So what is the charge of, getting caught with marijuana in Texas? The charge would be possession. So possession of 2 ounces or less of marijuana is a misdemeanor, punishable by up to 180 days imprisonment and a fine not to exceed $2,000. So possession of between 2 and 4 ounces of marijuana is a misdemeanor, punishable by imprisonment of up to 1 year and a fine not to exceed $4,000. So I wanted to put this graph in there. We're seeing here that there's many substances up on this graph. There's cigarettes, which were definitely more common back in '91. We're seeing the rise of vapes and marijuana in our previous years. I just want to kind of target right here where it is that rise of vapes being used amongst, this is specific to 12th grade. And we see here that in the years, 19, 20, 21, 22, there was a huge rise in vape usage. And, we think about why must have that occurred? And we want to go back to what was going on in this time period between 2019 through 2022, really, was the pandemic. And so a lot of us were isolated, and there was a lot of substance use and misuse that occurred amongst youth. Another statistic up there for you guys. So we see here that college and non-college students, this is specific to 2017, 18, and 19. We see a huge rise in both college and non-college students who are using or misusing marijuana. Here are some examples of vapes that contain marijuana. They're really referred to as carts. So we're seeing here that they come in all different types of flavors. This would mainly be what differentiates a cart from a normal vape that contains nicotine is that cartridge right here. And then these are some cake vapes. I'm on a vaping action committee here locally in Georgetown ISD, and we see a lot of these pens happening, or occurring use of in the Georgetown ISD high schools. And so these contain Delta 8. They are actually legal and they can be sold to whoever, walks into a smoke shop, because they say that they do have that less than 0.3% inside of them. So effects of marijuana on the brain, we all know that, the chemical is THC. That's the chemical responsible for marijuana's psychological effects, affects brain cells throughout the brain, and including cells and circuits related to learning and memory, coordination, and addiction. So chronic marijuana use has been linked with depression, anxiety, and an increased risk of schizophrenia in some cases. So effects of marijuana on the lungs. Marijuana smoke deposits 4 times more tar in the lungs and contains 50 to 70% more cancer-causing substances than tobacco smoke does. So let's see how, places are marketing to reach our youth. So we see here that this is appears to be a young girl who is holding a jewel. This would, cause someone who is young to be more inclined to try what she has, just because she seems like she's around their age. And they do typically use younger people in their ads and advertisements. Down here, we see that there's these, flavors. We've got vanilla, cookies and milk, the Starbursts or the Sour Patch Kids, and then whipped cream as well. Those are all flavors to target to youth. Who really loves candy and all those types of flavors is majority, I would say, is young people. And these targeters do know that, and that's why they are trying to target youth with all these different types of flavors. I put this TV show up there as well called Euphoria. This one was something that blew up, especially within that high school age range. A lot of people were viewing this TV show, and although it does educate us on the dangers of substance misuse and use and how Zendaya was affected by it, I do believe that just the partying and the drug use aspect of that entire show may incline youth to use or try new substances if they haven't already. And then we've got those elf bars down there, all different types of colors. So you can pick your color, say your favorite color is pink, you've got a vape available for you, or blue. And so we just see here that a lot of those marketing techniques are trying to target youth. And then, of course, we've got the candy up there. Looks like regular Swedish fish, or the, Starbursts or Sour Patches, but it actually contains weed or THC in these candies. So many teens have dangerous misconceptions that lead them to believe that vaping is harmless. However, we all know that, important facts that we should share with youth is that vaping or vapors could be inhaling metal particles into their lungs. There can be danger behind the flavor, and vape aerosol can contain harmful chemicals as well. So now we go into fentanyl. Like we've all heard, we are currently experiencing a fentanyl crisis in all communities, I would say. And a lot of us may not know exactly what fentanyl is, or where it's being purchased from, or how it's being sold on the street. So what is fentanyl? An extremely potent synthetic opioid used as an analgesic, so 50 to 100 times more potent than morphine. So we see here that, a very low dosage of fentanyl can cause an overdose. And that's why we're experiencing so many overdose deaths in the community due to fentanyl. And it's very tragic and saddening to see all of that in the news. So I put down here that there are some prescribed versions of fentanyl. This is for extreme and severe pain. So there's Actic, Duragesic, Sublimase, or Lizanda. So if you see any of these are the prescribed versions of fentanyl, not the ones being sold on the street. So what is illicit fentanyl? So synthetic opioid pressed into counterfeit pills resembling prescription drugs. So we see here that this is an authentic pill and this is a fake pill. They look very similar to each other. You may not even, be able to tell what the difference is. The key thing to know here is that synthetic opioids are made in a lab, so fentanyl is made in a lab. So here are some street names that refer to fentanyl that you may have heard, may have not. Some of the most common ones are Crazy One, Dance Fever, Dragon's Breath, Fire, Friend, Goodfella, Great Bear, and many more up there. They come in all different types of colors, like we see over here. And they can, kind of mimic candy, really. I've heard that some people say that they mimic Skittles. I would really personally say they mimic sweet tarts, and that's maybe possibly even more dangerous, because a child or someone young could, think that they're ingesting sweet tarts, Skittles, etc., but it could potentially be laced with fentanyl. So in 2020, 833 Texans died due to fentanyl. We're seeing in 2021 that 1,672 died. That is an 89% increase in 1 year. I'm still waiting on the 22 statistics, but I can almost guarantee you that number has probably doubled or tripled. So again, why is this a problem? It's because fentanyl, a very low dosage can cause an overdose, right? We're seeing that it's right up there at that 25% mark. It's even, more toxic than heroin itself, and cocaine and MDMA, all of these drugs that we hear and we want to stay away from, but fentanyl is just 10 or 100 times worse. So as little as 2 milligrams of fentanyl can be lethal. That's about the amount shown on the tip of this pencil. So that's a very small amount to be lethal. And so say this is pressed into a pill. The drug dealer is not really going to measure how much fentanyl he is lacing that pill with, he or she. You ingest it, and that could possibly cause an overdose. So drug overdose deaths in the US, we see here that it has definitely been on an upward rise of 107,000 in 2021. And that, we are just seeing that more synthetic opioids are being sold on the streets, and that could possibly be the reason for all of this. So again, why is this a problem? Fentanyl is involved in more American youth drug deaths than heroin, meth, cocaine, benzos, and prescription drugs combined. Fentanyl is cheap, potent, and profitable, so dealers use it to make fake pills. It can also be found in party drugs like cocaine and MDMA. So again, that cheap aspect of it, potent and profitable, that's why these dealers are, cutting their pills with fentanyl. So how does an opioid overdose happen or occur in our brain? So we have opioid receptors in our brain. That opioid, then, we ingest it, it tags onto that opioid receptor. And that is what really causes that overdose to happen. Now, how can we identify some signs of an opioid overdose? I've put this diagram up there called blue. So B referring to breathing. So breathing during an overdose is shallow. There are gurgling sounds, erratic or completely absent. Lips, so lips and fingertips are blue due to decreased oxygen throughout the body. Unresponsiveness, the victim will not respond to verbal or physical stimulation. And then your eyes, so pupils are pinpoint as the opioids constrict the pupils to an unusually small size. These are just some signs of an opioid overdose. Of course, everyone is different, so they may react differently. So what can you do to reverse an overdose? Of course, I have nasal Narcan up there. We are huge promoters of nasal Narcan, especially with the crisis that we are facing in our communities now. So how does naloxone work, or nasal Narcan? So again, we have that opioid receptor in our brain. That opioid is now binded to that opioid receptor. Narcan comes in and replaces that opioid. So now it binds to that opioid receptor in that brain. And, people, I've heard multiple things from different resources. However, up to 90 minutes after you do use nasal Narcan, it can save someone's life up to 90 minutes. I'm not saying that you should wait until 90 minutes to call emergency help. You should call emergency help right away. However, nasal Narcan is just a hinder to stop that opioid overdose. So I have a video up here, how to teach y'all how to use naloxone or nasal Narcan. It's just a short video that I'd like to view just with everything going on. I think it's really important for everyone to know how to use Narcan.
Naloxone is a medication designed to rapidly reverse opioid overdose. It can restore normal respiration to a person whose breathing has slowed or stopped as a result of overdosing with heroin or prescription opioid pain medications. How to recognize an opioid overdose? Small constricted pinpoint pupils, falling asleep or loss of consciousness, slow, shallow breathing, choking or gurgling sounds, limp body, pale, blue, or cold skin. How to use Narcan. 1. Identify an opioid overdose and check for response. 2. If no response, administer Narcan through the nasal passages. This will not cause harm if not experiencing an opioid overdose. 3. Call 911 immediately, as additional support is often needed. 4. Try to keep the person awake and breathing. 5. Lay the person on their side to prevent choking. 6. Stay with the person until emergency workers arrive. To obtain Narcan to carry, please talk to your primary care provider or pharmacist. You do not need a prescription to obtain this overdose reversing medication. Please keep it room temperature.
So that was just a little video on how to use nasal Narcan. Like the video did say, you can obtain nasal Narcan from really any pharmacy. You do not need a prescription for it. I know that that can be a misconception in our community. I have spoken to some pharmacies that have said that, you know, they'll only accept a prescription, but generally you can go into any pharmacy and obtain nasal Narcan without a prescription. So again, how to, respond to an overdose. This just kind of goes step by step. So try to awaken them by tapping them on the shoulder and talking to them. Call 911 immediately. This part is crucial. Then administer the naloxone by placing the device all the way up one nostril and click the plunger. Gently tilt their head back to check if there is something obstructing the airway. Provide chest compressions and check for breathing. And then when the person begins to breathe, put them in the rescue position. So I wanted to put this up there. The truth is, one pill can kill. With everything that we've been seeing in our community recently, I truly do believe that, one pill can really kill, especially with what drug dealers are cutting it with. You just never know. Like I said before, they are not really measuring out how much will cause you to overdose. They're just trying to make a profit. So there's not one pill to solve the problem. We are all part of the solution. So how can you educate other community members or youth about these topics? My recommendation is to just talk about it, to communicate, to set boundaries, and most importantly, to monitor your kids as well, especially their social media, because there is a lot going on social media nowadays that can lead to substance use or misuse. And then America's drug problem will not be solved in court or in legislative hearing rooms by judges or politicians. It will be solved in living rooms and dining rooms and across kitchen tables by parents and families. So again, just that aspect of having that open communication with your children. I also wanted to put this up there because I am the coalition coordinator. This is just some of the work that we've done in regards to medication disposal in the community and our efforts to prevent these tragedies from happening. So we do have that Overdose Awareness Day that is August 31st. We are partners with that, and we did actually start that in Williamson County. So everyone comes out that day, whoever has lost a loved one due to an overdose, and they do wear purple. And then we've got doTERRA bags. This breaks down prescription medication or really any pills right at home. So you rip this bag open, add those pills into it, add some water, and it breaks it down into a gel. We do organize DEA Take Back Day in Sun City here in Georgetown. And then we have multiple drop-off locations as well. And then, like I mentioned before, we do presentations in the community. So one of our presentations is pot positivity, not pills. And then we also have trainers who do opioid overdose response training. And then that's my contact information up there, my phone number, my email, and I also have a prevention director, and her contact information is up there as well.